Welcome back, everyone. This is part two. We're studying about Daniel and him as a young man being taken captive and how he's trying to uh, be a faithful Christian and a faithful servant in the midst of a culture that's trying to get him to change.
Yeah.
So, um, what do you got for us today, Brother Mike?
Well, it's not only trying to change, but they're trying to conform him to the culture of Babylon. And that's what the devil is trying to do to our young people. He's trying to get them to conform to the world. So, here Daniel is realizing that, he's not willing to defile himself for the king's meat and the king's drink. And so he sits in his heart that he's not going to defile himself. And as we were saying in the last one, a lot of times we think that there's just no way for us to be able, especially young people. I don't want them to ever think that there is no way that they can be what God wants them to be, even at a young age. God starts something with Daniel and with the head of the eunuchs, the chief eunuch, that's going to affect the way that Daniel can proceed. And God is intervening in this, just as he does in the lives of each and every one of us. But for those that consider themselves too young or too inexperienced or whatever it is, God will provide the things that we stand in need of to be able to perform the things he wants us to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so we see in verse 9 of Daniel chapter 1 that God had brought Daniel into favor and tender love with the prince of the eunuchs. And the prince of the eunuchs said unto Daniel, I fear my lord the king, he's talking about Nebuchadnezzar, who hath appointed you meat and drink, and for why should he see your faces worse likened than the children which are of your sort? Then shall you make me endanger my head to the king. So, Melzar, he truly was worried. He was worried that, Daniel, if you don't eat the same thing if you don't eat the things that I'm giving you, he'll be able to see it in your countenance, because what we eat affects who we are. It affects our health. But yet the thing of it is what most people don't realize, we're not talking about the flesh. We're talking about the spiritual person. And Daniel realized this is going to affect me spiritually. But Daniel gives a kind of a little proclamation here. He's not really making a bet, but he says, hey, hold on just a second. Let's do something. And so he said, prove thy servants. This is Daniel, and the servants here, of course, is Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Mm-hmm. He said, I beseech thee 10 days, and let them give us pulse to eat and water to drink. Okay? Let everybody else, and as we see in the scriptures, everybody else that was brought out of Jerusalem was eating the king's meat. I mean, here's Daniel's people. But yet Daniel and his three friends, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they choose rather to eat pulse, which, as we said in the last lesson, is just, it's a stew type thing with beans and probably lentils or rice, something of that nature, how we would think of it today. Not something probably very appealing to most people when you could have the king's meat, but yet it was sufficient. It was good stuff for the people.
So they convince them to try it for 10 days.
10 days.
Just let us do it for 10 days and see if we still look good.
Yeah.
And our countenance hadn't changed or anything like that.
And there's something that Daniel says that I think a lot of times it would be encouraging for not only our young people, for the older ones too. Let's prove God. Let's prove that God's way is better than the way of the world. And he said, prove us. Give us 10 days. Give us 10 days. Nothing but pulse and water. Let us eat that and let us drink that, and then you make the decision. And so after 10 days, he says in verse 13, then let our countenance be looked upon before thee, and the countenance of the children that eat of the portion of the king's meat, as thou seest, deal with thy servants. So he says, you watch them, you watch the people, my fellow brethren, my fellow Jews, you watch them, and then you watch us. And if at the end of 10 days, if our countenance is not just as good or better than them, then you make the decision and we'll be obedient. Okay? And so he consented and to them in this matter, and proved them 10 days. At the end of 10 days, their countenance appeared fairer and fatter in flesh than all the children which did eat the portion of the king's meat. So not only did they were not only just as good, they were better. Right. They looked healthier. They were sharper mentally, and because the thing of it is our mind. We don't really think this, because we see what the scripture says: the carnal mind is enmity against God, is not subject to the law of God, neither he can be. But yet we are told in the scriptures that we are to conform our mind, even just as we conform our bodies. And the things that we put into our life will affect the way that we think. By seeing and hearing the things of Sodom, it vexes Lot's righteous soul. So a lot of times the things that we put in to ourselves will hinder us in the way that we are able to serve the Lord. Whether it's a physical food or whether it's something that we listen to or watch or the people that we're around. Here Daniel found him 3 good friends that were just as faithful as he was.
Yeah.
And, one of the most encouraging things that you can have is be around a group of people that are dedicated their young lives to the Lord.
That's very important.
It's very important. We need to make sure we pick our friends. Let me rephrase that. We need to make sure we let God pick our friends.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so because they can either encourage us or they can bring us down.
Mm-hmm.
And so here were 3 young men that encouraged Daniel. They encouraged one another. And we see...
We just read the scriptures that they do this.
Yeah.
We don't know how much they struggled. Should we defy the king's commandments?
Oh, goodness.
I mean, you don't really know in between the scriptures how hard this was for them to step out on faith.
Oh,
but like you said, they tried the faith, and after 10 days, God had blessed it.
Yeah. And can you imagine what it must have been like if the Lord had not softened the heart of the chief of the eunuchs?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he could have said no.
Right.
But
he allowed them to go along with it too.
He allowed them to prove their faithfulness to God. And God does that. God will put people in our lives that one day may oppose us. The next day, they may be there to be able to help us, to prove and to be able to be faithful to the Lord. So what happens? Melzer, in verse 16, took away the portion of their meat and the wine that they should drink and gave them pulse. So for the next 3 years, this is what they ate, and they drank water. While everybody else was eating the finest that there was in Babylon, these 4 men were staying faithful to God. A lot of times we think, well, if I'm faithful today, I'll be all right tomorrow to do something different. It's not like that. We need to be faithful continually. Mm-hmm. And our young people need to understand this. It's not something that is out of the ordinary. It is when we think of society. But when we think of the ways that God has established His commandments and His laws and His purpose in our lives, every day needs to be like the first day. Mm-hmm. And so for the next 3 years, this is what they eat. And I'm fully confident, and this is just my opinion. We don't know this after the 3 years. We don't read nothing about the pulse and the water. I believe Daniel ate it to the day he died. Mm-hmm. I don't think he ever partook of the king's meat. And I don't think Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego did either. I can't prove that. But.
Right. And I'm probably getting ahead of your scriptures there, but these next 3 years that they're doing this, we see how God's blessing them with growing, and they're even getting more wisdom. They're getting more faithful.
Exactly.
They're growing. They're learning. They're becoming, I guess one way to say it, the head of the class.
They're very much the head of the class.
Yeah.
And in verse 17, and for these 4 children, God gave them knowledge and skill in all learning and wisdom. And Daniel had understanding in all visions and dreams. So you're exactly right. That's what the scriptures teach us. Mm-hmm. God gives us what we need when we need it for the work that He's doing, that He has for us at that point in time. And here, these 4 men were young men, were being blessed in a great way of God. Mm-hmm. We find out here a little bit later that they're appointed to some of the highest ranks in all of Babylon. We know what Daniel goes through as an older man. He's way up in age. By the time that he's thrown into the lion's den, he's an elderly man. He has spent his life in being faithful unto God. But yet even the king understood, because when it was the time that they couldn't find no fault against Daniel, they were jealous. The men of Babylon, the religious rulers, I guess you would say, the soothsayers and astrologers and all of these, They were very much jealous of Daniel because he was still appointed, even as an older gentleman, to a level that was higher than everybody else. And when he was put there, they couldn't find no fault in Daniel. And so they said, the only way we'll ever find fault in Daniel is in his God. Mm-hmm. Not God's, in his God. Yeah. Now, it wasn't their God, but it was his God. And folks, let me tell you something. You need to have God prominent in your life. And when the decree was made that nobody was to petition any god except for the king, Daniel went, and as he did every day, he prayed 3 times. They caught Daniel threw in the lion's den. And even the king was like, there's got to be a way I can get around this. And they said, oh no, king, you signed a decree. It's law. It has to be. And so he throws him in there. He seals the door shut. Didn't sleep none that night. The next morning he gets up early. He runs back to where Daniel is. And he said, Daniel, did thy God save you? It sounds like to me he actually had a little faith, because he wouldn't have called out to Daniel if he didn't think Daniel was still alive.
Mm-hmm.
What did Daniel say? Oh, king, don't worry. God has shut the mouths of the lions.
Yeah.
Then we see the other three men. I mean, when we look at the things that are taught to our children, it all began with the faithfulness that they had as young men. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego.
And that foundation of them having the faith as young men, they were able to hold on to that faith and stand strong when they were older and these major events were happening
Yes.
in their life. They were just able to lean on the Lord and say, the Lord's going to take care of us whether we die or not.
Yes.
Yeah. They had that type of faith.
When Nebuchadnezzar had built this statue, and at any time that the music was to be played, you just to stop what you're doing and you just bow down to pray. Mm-hmm. And now Daniel's not mentioned this, but I'm sure I'm positive, either Daniel was not within that city, he was maybe somewhere else in the province of Babylon, or whatever it is, we don't know, but Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego was there. And they would not bow. And Nebuchadnezzar gave them an opportunity. He says, all you have to do is just bow. They said, we're not going to do it. Whether you take our life or whether you're not, we're going to be faithful unto the Lord. God is in control of this. And I want all of our young people to know, young and old, you try to serve the Lord, the devil's going to throw every obstacle he can in your way. Stay faithful. Stay faithful, because God is going to do great things. Mm-hmm. He throws them into the fire. A fire is so hot, heated 7 times hotter than normal. Yeah. He throws them in there. It's so hot that the people throwing them in is burnt. And yet, here they are, bound when they're thrown in there. And after a few minutes, we don't know how long it lasted, Nebuchadnezzar is up there and he's looking over into it. He said, did we not cast 3 men bound into the fire? And they said, yeah. Mm-hmm. He said, why did I see 4 men loose, walking in the fire, and the 4th is likened unto the Son of God? I don't know what he saw that day, but whatever it was, he said, you get them out now. Mm-hmm. And so they walked out, not a hair on their head was singed, nothing on their body that had no smell of smoke. I mean, they were completely and fully untouched by the fire. And I'm thankful that today, if we stay faithful to God, though we'll go through the trials of this life and we'll go through the fires and the things that try to bring us down, but all they are is refiners, just like gold. I mean, forget the purest gold, you just got to go through the fire. And that's the way our lives are. This is what God is trying to do. When troubles and trials come our way, it's not that he's trying to punish us. He's trying to refine us, mm-hmm. that we might be better examples for others. All of this transpires. Mm-hmm. Okay, we see Daniel, we see Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Nebuchadnezzar witnessed that. Later in Nebuchadnezzar's life, as far as I can find, he's the only one out of the kings of Babylon that ever got saved. And I believe he truly did. We can look further in the book of Daniel and we find Nebuchadnezzar's own account. He finally comes to the conclusion that this is God. And I really believe it's all based upon what 4 young teenage boys, the choice they made in the very beginning of their captivity. They were unwilling to defile themselves, even though everybody else around them was doing it. Their friends, their neighbors, the people that they knew, everybody else was doing it. These 4 men chose to be obedient to God, and God used them in a great way. Mm-hmm. Daniel, of course, receives great visions. He's able to interpret the dream that Nebuchadnezzar has. And he gives the foundation of one of the greatest promises given to us today. That out of this great image, these 4 parts that he saw, up in the mountain was a rock. Mm-hmm. And it come loose. And as it came down, it destroyed that image. But yet that rock never was destroyed. It represented the church. It represented what God was about to do. Daniel was able to prophesy of the 70 years of how that all of these things was coming to pass. He brought down every nation to a T, from the Babylonians to the Medes and Persians, from the Medes and Persians to the Grecians, from the Grecians to the Romans, and during the time of the Romans, the Messiah would be born. He would live, he would die, he would be cut off halfway during that final week. And during this final week, those last 3.5 years, everything would be confirmed. And we see that in the book of Acts.
Yeah.
So here Daniel was prophesying of a great blessing that was going to come upon the world. And he had that opportunity. We have that today because Daniel chose rather to eat a bowl of stew and drink water than to eat the king's meat and drink the king's drink.
Yeah, that's such a good lesson. I appreciate your discussion and bringing this out for us today. I look forward to hearing your next example that you're going to discuss with us. But appreciate the lesson, and I hope everybody watching has got something out of this. And again, we just encourage our youth. Be faithful. Start now trying to be a good pillar in the church and an example to your friends, and that encourages the older members of the church also so much.
Yes, it does.
Yeah.